What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today we're going to do a Seraph Purelight deck profile. So we're going to cover the winning image, how it's changed, some of the card ratios, and also some closing thoughts with some suggestions for you to try out too. So let's get right into it.
Next Level Gaming has the new playmats already out for we have Bruce versus Bastion over here. Really amazing artwork, so I highly recommend. We also have the Vanguard Valentine's one, so if you're into like Angel Feather, for example, this would be perfect as well. And in the future coming out, we'll have something with Zorga versus Seraph Snow, so I'm excited for that one too. I'm gonna actually get that one myself too. So you can check out the affiliated link down in the description below and also get a 10% discount on your next purchase.
So the winning image has gone really good for Seraph Purelight in the set 4, and so we actually got a grade 4 in this set over here as in Seraph Purelight. So whenever this unit is placed onto Vanguard Circle, you can Counter Blast one, Soul Blast a card with Seraph in the name, and actually choose 2 cards from your opponent's soul, their rearguard circle, and their hand that you get to choose, and you prison those units into the prison over here. And so what it does is that you can prison potentially 6 cards from your opponent into your prison, which is awesome because a lot of the effects that we've seen over the sets with Seraph in general, they need to see 2 or 3 units in the prison to actually activate and be fully live in a sense too. But what goes more in hand with that pressure is really the second skill. And so continues during your turn, all of your front row units get an additional 5k for every 2 cards that are imprisoned. And then of course, if you have 10 or more that are imprisoned, then all of your units in the front row get an additional crit. And holy crap, you can see that scales. And as you can see, when you have 10 cards, you know, it's 5 times 5, and so that's 25k overall. So your front row is 25k plus with an additional crit in the sense, just by hitting that single threshold, which is super impactful as a whole, because one, this deck is a 3 attack deck, but it also uses the prison mechanic itself, so that way you can really apply that pressure and help seal the deal. One of the things that the deck has suffered sometimes is being able to close games effectively. So even though you have the grade 3 Seraph that can do Persona Ride, do triple drive, you just still needed that little extra to actually push through and break things in that sense. To help with that winning image and get to that high count, we have like the promo over here, Macarite. This is super helpful for the deck profile. And so when this unit is placed onto rearguard circle from hand, you can Soul Blast 1, and your opponent basically imprisons the top card from their deck. And this unit gets plus 5k if you have 2 or more in the imprisoned. And so that's super big, because if you realize when you prison units from their rearguard circle, their soul, or their hand, they actually have a say in what to imprison. This is the top card of their deck, so you can imprison potentially heal trigger, and over trigger, a PG, or key units that really they didn't want to begin to be imprisoned in the first place. So it helps with that, but also build to that prison count, so that way Seraph Purelight can be as strong as possible. And then we have over here Cuff Spring, which also helps in that respect, because there are decks that honestly can get away with not calling rearguard circles or rearguards in general, and actually, or cards that kind of escape the field. Like a good example would be Inland Pulse for Stokea, and that's why you want cards like Macarite and even Cuff Spring, where Cuff Spring can, when it's placed onto rearguard circle, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and imprisons it, and then they get to draw a card. At first it seems like, wait, they get to draw a card, you don't want them to dig deeper into the deck, which can increase their quality of their hand. But in practice, you realize that they have to decide on what to imprison, and that can be a tough choice on their part too, because they don't want to imprison a key unit that they want to use in their turn, but at the same time, they want to make sure they have shield value to survive your turn. And so it gets closer to even deck out, because Macarite takes from the deck and Cuff Spring forces that draw. So depending on your opponent, if they're not careful, you could deck them out too as an alternative in that sense too as well. And obviously with the grade 3, we still, we have Seraph Snow, so your grade 3 turn is still key. You can Counter Blast, imprison 2 units, build up to the triple drive, have that pressure. And we have this card over here, which is the Gleamer, which can actually, it gets 5k in continuous if you have a Seraph Vanguard. So it's a 13k booster attacker that you can use. And the second skill is that when it's placed into rearguard circle from hand, then if you have 3 or more units that are imprisoned, you can search for another copy and then call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So this helps deck then, this helps build field presence, and this can be attackers along with a Purelight to beef up for better numbers. This is also a 13k booster, where even like a card like Cuff Spring, where it gets no power, you can make a 23k column still. You can make a 28 column with Macarite, and really plus from there in that sense in numbers. Onto the ride line, we are still playing the actual ride line from like the very first trial deck in sense, or starter deck, We have the starter that can be anything. We have the Kyanet Blue that actually, gets the prison card over here from your deck, and I recommend playing one copy of the prison, so you can deck in that sense. And if you do draw into it, it's okay. It's only a few games that happens in that sense, but you get to benefit to deck in too. We only play one in the right line. We have better cards in the main deck itself, so we don't want to worry about her Rigard Circle skill. And then of course we have Rosette Pink, that when it's onto Vanguard Circle, you can imprison one of the cards in their hand. They get to choose, of course, and then that helps start getting your engine going in the sense. So that way, when you get to Seraph Snow, it's a lot easier to have that 2 or 3 or requirement in that prison state, so you can have triple drive, have power, and really go from there. For the grade 4s in the main deck, we are playing 4 copies of Seraph Purelight. You want maximum copies, and one of the things that Differfight alluded to in one of his deck profiles is that we also run draw triggers to help get to this card as soon as possible. Everything else is in the right line, so you literally have to hard draw into this, drive check it, etc. Right? And so not only that, you want to make sure you have it by your turn 4, so that way you're able to write it and do the benefits on that. But the downside with her second skill, or her first skill, where it actually presents up to 6 cards potentially, it's when it's unplaced. So it's not like an axe skill that you can freely activate in that sense too. So you have to have another copy and actually write it and do the skill again once more in that sense. And it's so impactful because, if you imprison units from the soul, your opponent needs soul to use its skills and resources depending on the deck it uses. So you take away from its resources. If they have any rear guards, you take away from that, and then of course their hand size decreases, which makes it harder for them to guard. So being able to consistently ride a Seraph Purelight turn after turn until you win is really key in that respect. On to the grade 2s, we are playing 13 grade 2s over here. 4 Macarite, 4 Cup Spring, I've already talked about them, they're essential, I definitely recommend. If you don't have the Macarite and you're really tight on budget, I would recommend playing the Turquoise grade 2, along with the other grade 2s that you have already accessible in that sense too. So that might be a good substitute in that scenario, but I definitely would recommend investing into Macarites because it really makes the deck super powerful in that respect. Especially if you do enjoy playing this deck or want to play competitively, it's definitely worth the investment in that sense too. And so with Agar Rouge and over here Violet, so Agar Rouge is one of those cards that I appreciate since set 1 in the sense, and it's Vanguard or Rigard Circle and Guardian Circle. If you have 2 or more of the imprisoned cards, then this unit gets continuous 5k and 10k shield on top of that. So it's a 15k shield, it's a 15k beater. This is continuous, so even if it's during your opponents, it's a 15k regard, so they had to hit over that to actually hit over that. And what's really cool is that you can intercept it and still get the benefit of a 15k shield too. And then of course, when you place it onto a Rigard Circle, you can Soul Blast 1, choose one of the opponent's front row and actually imprison it. So this helps with your imprison count, so you can build up towards that 10 count to make that pressure turn in the late game in that sense too. So it's a really good card in that sense in terms of shield and value. To help with more shield value or defensiveness, I am playing the Violet. This is the card when it's placed into Guardian Circle, and if you have 1 or more imprisoned units, you can actually Soul Blast 1 and choose one of your units. It cannot be hit by a grade 2 or lower card's attack until the end of the battle. And so really what this is a PG, that's 1 card for any grade 2 or less unit that's attacking. So this is great against Stokea and other decks that use grade 2s to depend on that. You may not use this against Bastion because it rely on grade 3s, for example. But that's why I played this extra one, because it's almost like a 5th PG to help with that defensiveness. And you can call this a Rigard Circle, intercept with it because it says put, so that actually counts as intercepting too as well. Onto the grade 1s here, we are playing 12 grade 1s here. So we have 4 of the Gleamer, 4 of the PGs, and 4 of the Shovel Stud. Gleamer is just a great card. I'm playing 4 because you want to make sure that when you call this card, you're able to make sure that you pull one from deck. And it's super imperative because it helps build those 2 Rigard columns to be really powerful. Usually the Vanguard doesn't need a booster, but you can use a booster like Chevy for the Vanguard too, but where these can be a little more impactful onto the Rigard Circle, demanding more shield. These can also be attackers too, so if you don't have a solid Rigard column in the second one, this can be an attacker on its own too as well. And I've realized that sometimes if you damage check or you even soul charge for the cost of the prison card to activate it, you may lose out on copies. So by the time you call this to the mid to late game, you may not have one left in deck or you barely have the one. And so that's why I feel 4 is a really good number. So whereas 3, you may not have that one in a sense. So I definitely watch out, play with that number for yourself in that sense. And then of course PGs are PGs, we need them. And Shovel Stud, it still has a place in this deck, mainly because it's another card that imprisons, because you can Counterblast and Soul Blast one as an act and imprison anything. And then of course the big one is that if you have 3 or more prison cards after that, you draw a card. So this helps build your field potentially by drawing into key pieces that you can further call, and also further your prisoning potentially, depending if you drew a Macarite, a Cuff Spring, or just other key pieces that can help. Who never know, you might use this skill drawn to this and then you call this and you get another copy in that sense, and all of a sudden you build a field just like that in that sense. So it does have value in drawing and getting an advantage too, so it's definitely worth playing. Lastly, onto the triggers. So with the draw triggers, you want to play the new ones because 2 reasons. One, it helps you get closer to your grade 4 Purelight, and so that way when you get to your grade 4 turn, you're ready to go, especially if you drive check these or get a defensive in that sense. So you just get more combo pieces to work with. You can draw into pieces that are in prison that you need to hit certain thresholds. Let's say you're at 5 prison units and you need to get to the 6 to get the extra 5k from Purelight's power. That can make a difference too in that long-term mindset. And then of course these are 10k shields once your opponent's grade 3 once your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater in this sense. So it helps with those 10k blocks that are awkward sometimes, so it helps save conserve hand in this sense too. And of course we're playing the 4 heals because they're 4 heals, and this is where this can change with most players. I've seen decks that play pretty much the crit lineup essentially and don't play the fronts. My friend Duke and I have considered where the fronts I feel like do more work against players that are pretty smart, because they realize that your front row are going to be crit too, that even if you're at 4 damage or if the opponent's at 4 damage, they can still die, right? It goes from 4 to 6 in one shot depending on those attacks that hit through. So more than likely they're going to take damage till they actually get to 5 damage to get the benefit of hitting a trigger in the sense, or just taking a damage and saving hand. So the pressure for like more crits isn't really as threatening, whereas you drive checking now fronts while they're at 5 damage gives you more power to be able to break through that hand. So that's why we value the fronts, but also defensively they are extra 5k shields or 20k shield values when your opponent's a grade 3 or greater Vanguard as well. So this is just more shield quality for your hand too as well on top of that. And then the over trigger for Brandt is just amazing. This doubles your crit and power. If you're on the Seraph Purelight already, you go for quad crit all your front row, and then power is just ridiculous too. So you just like pretty much auto win in that sense too, which is really powerful. And then of course the crits, these are the crits that actually go into Soul. So I haven't really had the struggle with Soul. It just depends on the matchup. Maybe in the Mare where you're using Soul to count your prison units coming out, and at the same time they have their Purelight, so they're eating your soul in a sense. So you may want to use this potentially as like kind of setting up for next turn, but it just really depends on the matchup too. But it's just like it's a crit win in effect, so that helps in that regard too. Not just to show off an example play going into your turn 4. Let's just say as soon as you start for your turn 4, you have 3 cards imprisoned. You may have intercepted, they may have attacked, you have some counterblast to work with, and as said, let's say you have Shovel Stud for example behind a Vanguard or something like that. So once you ride the Seraph Purelight, you'll counterblast 1, Soul Blast the Seraph unit, and then of course let's say you do 6 cards, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 in that sense. So you hit 2 in the soul, you got 2 in the rear guard and 2 in the hand in the sense, so maximum benefit in the sense. So you just imprison that many units already in account to what you had. In this case you're at 9. If you were shorter than that, no worries in that regard, because depending if they have a field or not, let's say if they do, you have the Agra Rouge that can Soul Blast and imprison the front unit. You also have a Cuff Spring that could also imprison from the hand, and then you also have, let's say, maybe the Macarite that can also Soul Blast and actually lock or imprison from the top of the deck. So you can easily get to those additional cards into the prison in that sense. And to add to it, you can call a Gleamer to call another Gleamer, because you are way beyond the 3 or more. And then if you have a Shovel Stud, you can further keep blocking if they have stuff on the rear guard essentially, and then draw a card of course in that benefit too. So you can keep imprisoning cards in that sense till you get a fat stack in that sense. And now because you're 10 plus cards in the prison, they're at least 25k plus in power to all the front row. They have additional crits, So if your Vanguard would attack first, boosted, this is 13 plus 25. That actually makes 38. Boosted with this 8k 46k column. You have triple drive check. This is the middle of the deck profile, so we'll see a bunch of triggers because they're stacked. And you apply to the rest of the front row. And then, of course, you have, like I mentioned, this is 15k with the 13k boost, so this makes 28. 28 plus the 25k power up. That's 53-ish plus, depending on how much you got over here. And a very similar standpoint, same thing, plus. And so, really hard pressure here. Crit 2 and everything like that. And this is your turn 4. So this is why it's so powerful, because you're taking away your opponent's resources, and it's ridiculous in that sense too. And obviously there are matchups where people can play smart and they can empty their soul out, they can clear their field, so you may not be imprisoning up to 6 cards just by Purelight. So you may have to use cards more like Macarite and of course the Cuff Spring to be able to imprison units from the hand and deck as well. And then of course once you go back to your turn, then you want to ride the next Seraph Purelight, kind of less, guess what, Soul Blast the other one, boom, prison a bunch of units in that sense too. So it's just a really powerful card in that sense. The draw triggers help to get you your next piece in that sense, making sure the deck flows fluidly in that sense, and then you have enough defensive capabilities where you can guard like 15k shield, you can intercept with 5k shield, whatever you have from your hand, so you can survive. And that's the deck profile, guys. I hope you enjoyed it too. Some of the closing thoughts, there are other grade 3s that you can use to add more pressure in the hands of on hits or more critical pressure. There's some units that do that. My build with Duke's Opinion 2 in it, it's a little more conservative. It's a lot more conscientious of attrition in the sense too, to be able to make the best of your defensiveness, but still be having the key winning image of prisoning units and applying that crit pressure with power pressure too as well, with the consistency added to it in that respect too. If you really enjoy this kind of deck and want to actually build it too, feel free to use the TCG player affiliated link, so that way it helps the channel out. And then of course, if you're looking for the next set for bundles, check out 50 Card Shop too as well. Go ahead and use the promo code Jaime for a 5% discount on that next bundle purchase that you make too as well. And then of course, if you want to level up your gaming, you could always check out Next Level Gaming. Check out the affiliated link and you'll get another 10% discount on that purchase as well. Not only that, they're doing a 3 playmat special where you can get 25% entire off from that order too. So that way you and amigos going to Team League in person can actually take advantage of that too and come out really representing your nation in a sense too, especially with the new arts that have came out recently with March and of course coming up in April too. So keep on the lookout for that and try that out too. Again, this deck's in a really good spot in the meta. It's a solid choice. You definitely want to invest the Macarites if you want to go that route too. So this is a solid pick, I feel, for like Team Link. At least one of your people on team can use this as well. Another powerful deck will be like Magnolia, for example. So there are a few key things that you want to watch out. I would recommend practicing against that matchup too, because if they, let's say, imprison an M picks from hand into your prison and they Soul Blast it out, you can't touch it because it's resist kind of like effect, so you can get around it. There are other cards that you can use, like that grade 2 order that doesn't target technically. You can do that, but I don't know if that's really worth it, because like everything else is so crucial into this deck in the sense too. And if you found some of value for this video, please leave a like. It actually helps the YouTube algorithm to distribute this to card fighters such as yourself to find this video too. And then if you think you can share this to an amigo, go ahead. If they like Brandt or Seraph Snow, want to learn even into how it works so they could actually have a better chance of like dealing with it, I recommend sharing that as well. And let me know what in the comments, what are the things that you're trying out, some different ratios, some different grade 2s, or maybe like the crit trigger lineup. Like I mentioned, there's builds with a lot more crits, so I'd love to hear your opinion on what you guys are trying out and seeing in the metagame too as well. I love to engage with the community too. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell for instant notifications for more content to come in the near future too. So until the next one, amigos, bye.